Large 7-seat SUVs like the Kia Sorento, Mazda CX-9, Toyota Kluger, Hyundai Santa Fe, they are massively popular in Australia because they serve multiple roles. Most days they're an upsized medium SUV but with bigger bones for things like towing, carrying and just generally offering more space for growing families. Good for school holidays, drop-offs, that sort of thing. They do have a trick up their sleeve though, one that makes impromptu changes to regular programming that bit more manageable, as well as just being ready for action whenever excrement hits a fan, as it inevitably does to you. There is a dark side, however, and Past Me is going to talk about that next. Things are big. Alright. Oh. Don't twist the belt. Continuity error! Insert child. Got to change a nappy or whatever it may be. That's handy. I genuinely didn't think that was going to happen with space for a family. What day is it? If you currently have 2 kids going through primary school, but dad hasn't had the snip yet, chances are you're just one long weekend away from the kids from needing to start thinking about a large 7-seat SUV. It only takes one set of twins. So in this report, I want to walk you through the ins and outs, the pros and cons of considering a large 7-seat SUV like a Palisade or Santa Fe, Kia Sorento, Mazda CX-9, so that you can make an informed choice. Let's crack on. This is the business end of a large SUV, the boot. With the exception of a few inches and millimeters here or there, and plus or minus 50 litres of volume, it's basically the same size as a medium SUV back here. And I know this because I've tested it. Kid's suitcase. Dad's suitcase. The wife's suitcase. Esky. Picnic rug. Pram. Sleeping bags. I seem to have misplaced my kitchen sink. But all these same items are going to fit in the back of my Outback and our Sportage, both medium to large SUVs. Watch this. What really matters back here is the circumstance in which you might use a vehicle such as this. Are your kids going to have their mates over on the weekend? Are they likely to? Do they play sport? Are they probably going to? Do you plan to spend every second weekend and school holiday with the other side of your family, the whole mob together, towing a camper, that kind of stuff? If you are specifically planning for 3 kids or more, then you're probably going to need a bigger boat. You will benefit from the extra space back here for things like toys, nappy bags, prams, luggage, all that stuff you can barely carry. If, however, you have no friends and you don't see your in-laws, then the rare wedding you do attend, a 5-seater is probably going to suffice. So, if you said yes to all those questions above, you're going to benefit not just from having physical space back here, but also it means you're also going to benefit from these. Now, there are a couple of knock-on advantages to not just having more room for bums on seats back here. It means that you have more space in row 2 for booster seats, capsules and general child restraints. It also means that in row 1 at the passenger side, there's now more space for bigger adults, taller adults. It also means that, you know, if Nana's getting a bit past her prime and can't really be contorting herself into row 2 or dare I say row 3, she absolutely has somewhere to put her legs, and she can even shuffle forward and create that bit of extra space for back here. It also means that if your kids have outgrown their booster seats, meaning the seatbelt now sits properly across their chest and their shoulder, they can sit back here now too. And that's going to be a whole lot of fun. This makes essentially more room for the youngest members of the family who might still be in capsules and need your help. Row 3 basically makes for better access to row 2 to get the little guys in and out. It also means you can reach in to help kids on the other side of the car. If there was a booster seat here, it would be a lot harder. You can still get your 3 to 5 year old out of the vehicle quite okay without needing to get them in and out of row 3. So there's plenty of room back here. You can generally slide the seats forward to add extra leg room for the guys in row 3. And those who are in row 3 can usually get themselves out this way. Or they can just be big kids and close the opposite seat that they're not using. They may not need What this essentially means is you have more room to operate row 2 for the youngest members of the family. You know, the ones that can't actually help themselves. Capsule has heaps of room. You can take the little one out, and the little bloke in the restraint can also be helped out on the other side, on the curb side. You can help them out, get them to safety. The 9 to 15 year old in the back who can actually fit back there is quite free to either climb over row 2 and get themselves out that way, or if you'd prefer them not to potentially, you know, kick the roof and damage the car, they can also climb out via the boot, via the other seat. But what it does mean is, if you're going to need access to restraints constantly in the 3rd row, you're going to start to run into logistical errors depending on who's back there and how well they can help themselves. So if you've got a capsule in the outboard position, you know, it's going to be compromised as to how much space you can provide row 3 to get in and out. You can also adjust the seats generally on most vehicles to allow for more legroom as they, you know, start to grow. You're going to have to also think about whether you are going to put the capsule on the road side, which is the best way to do it. The restraint on the curb side, so that, you know, errant kids are getting out onto the safer side of the road. You don't really want them getting out on the driver's side if you're parked curbside. And, you know, when all else fails, I suppose they can always go out through the sunroof. Don't do that. There is also, you know, kind of feasible room for Nana back here if she needs to, you know, mind the kids, but it's a bit squashy back here. You don't really want to be fitting an adult back here unless it's like particularly necessary. You've got power outputs and, you know, vents and those sort of things generally in most vehicles, depending on the specification level. So the question becomes, how did two kids get out of row 3? How do they get out of here? Do they climb over and squash the bread and stand on baby? Well, you can slide the other seat forward. Well, so you can slide the 60 portion of the 60-40 splitting seats forward. Once the little bloke is out and on the curb, safe and doing as he's told. There is one issue, however, and that is with the seatbelt reminders. So if your vehicle doesn't have manually disabling seatbelt reminders, the car's going to beep at you when you don't have a seatbelt plugged in. But if you do plug it in to shut the seatbelt reminder up, it's going to be in the way, isn't it? That kind of defeats the purpose of having the seatbelt reminder, because you do actually benefit from that seatbelt reminder when your kids decide to test your patience, shall we say. I mean, so it also means you have to figure out the seatbelt path. Right, remove it, slide the seat forward, and obviously a grown adult is not going to be able to do this very well, or at all. So the problem here is that we now have a seatbelt kind of in the way of our path. Now, a 9-year-old can probably fit through that gap. 15-year-olds, yeah, don't know about that. This is not necessarily a fault, it is just the nuance of these kinds of vehicles. What you can do is disconnect the seatbelt, and I know it's a bit of fiddling around, but at least it's reasonably accessible back here. Slide the seat forward, and obviously your kid is going to be able to do this better than I can. Ow! Oh! Ow! The good news is, it is possible. So, you know, more possible than it is in a 5-seater, which doesn't have this ability. Getting back out is kind of like Jim Carrey being rebirthed as a rhinoceros. But again, there are possibilities here. You just have to figure out what they are and how they're going to work for your situation. I can also, again, get great access to the middle row if you have a booster back there and, you know, kid number 3 or 4 buckled in, you can help them. Or simply use the middle seat as a cup holder for this guy.
Cool.
What's important to remember back here is that row 3, seats 6 and 7 are generally an occasional use only proposition. They are not going to solve all your issues, but they will help fix or alleviate some of these bums on seats related space issues you are going to have. I've got a list of the drawbacks, however, and I'm going to explain them to you now. So, ISOFIX points in row 3. Generally, there are very few 7-seat SUVs on the market that have both top tether and ISOFIX points in row 3. Very few of them have double, like the Kia Sorento here, but most of them are just general purpose, occasional use only with seat belts, 3-point seat belts for the grown-ups. Hence my emphasis on the outgrowing booster seat stage for your kids. So if you specifically want that ability to put booster seats or capsules or restraints in here, have a look and do your research for Isofix and top tether anchor points. And keep in mind that a people mover is going to be a much more functional option if you need to get in and out of row 3 easily and frequently. Value. So you are going to be paying about 10 to 15 grand more for a 7-seater than you will for a 5-seater. So there is going to be crossover. A top spec medium SUV is going to cross over with a 7-seater sort of early to mid-range. So you want to think about how often you're going to use row 3 because you are paying a premium for them. It is a good advantage to have in your back pocket at a moment's notice. You know, when kids invite themselves over to your house on a Friday after school. Joy. There is also the safety aspect. Now, I've obviously talked about seat belts, but another safety aspect to consider back here is airbags. Generally, SUVs that have child restraint points in the row 3 do not have curtain airbags to come all the way over and cover the D pillar and C pillar for head protection in a crash. Now, having said that, generally most restraints have their own inbuilt crash protection systems. So curtain airbags, especially if you're only using these occasionally, aren't always that pertinent to have. It is a choice you need to make for yourself, whether you specifically want them or not. On that note, you also want to think about the control aspect. What you can control in terms of safety is whether you're in a crash or not. You might argue that with the point with me, but that's a video for another day. Let's talk about the spare tyre situation. Most 7-seat SUVs will get a full-size spare, but not all. And it's important to figure out which ones do and don't. And talking about control, you can control whether you have a full set of proper rubber running on your vehicle at all times, especially if you're going to pay a little bit more for, say, an all-wheel drive version as opposed to a front-wheel drive version. You should pay attention to whether you're going to have all-wheel drive actually functioning properly and giving you proper grip in all conditions, especially in the wet, dirt roads, if you're going to do those adventurous kind of journeys. I would argue that having a full-size spare is probably a bit more important than curtain airbags back here, and that's something that you need to deliberate over. The reason that you want to consider a full-size spare more so than a curtain airbag is because you don't necessarily get to control when you have a flat tire, and it's always in the wet when the boot is fully loaded, everyone's on board having a sleep, and it's Sunday night, you're heading home. That's when you get the flat tire. It's never on a Monday day, or it's always when you're running late. So control what you can control, and I would say go for a full-size spare whenever you can. Large SUVs like the Kia Sorento, Hyundai Santa Fe, Subaru Outback, although it's a 5-seater, Palisade, Toyota Kluger, they all have a full-size spare, but it's the CX-9, Kia Carnival, and Mitsubishi Outlander, which are 7-seaters, that have a space saver spare. Now, space saver spares are obviously lighter, and if you're going to be predominantly doing a lot of city-based running around, a space saver spare is going to be okay because you're close to a tyre shop, you can get it fixed whenever. But if you do a lot of regional travel or, you know, head out and about every now and then, Murphy's Law says you're probably going to get a flat there. So consider the full-size spare. And not every car maker, in fact very few, allow you to option up a full-size spare. That's something you need to ask specifically at the dealer. The other juxtaposition is that a CX-9, a Kluger, Palisade and Carnival all have third row curtain airbags up here. So you can use them for full-time 7-seat use. but Sorento, Santa Fe and Outlander do not have a curtain airbag up here, so they are much more occasional use only designation. So that's what you need to figure out, and I hope this has been helpful. I'm Scott Murray from Best Family Cars. If you've gotten something out of this report, let me know in the comments, subscribe, like if you liked it, and if you need a discount on a 7-seat SUV, you can contact me at bestfamilycars.com.au. Press the red button and fill out the form, and I'll help you out with all that. And until then, see you then.